Okay, we're rolling here live, Nova Lab Studios here downtown with Elizabeth Dovlatyan. Did I say it right?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thanks for coming, Elizabeth.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So you do a couple things right now for job-wise, career-wise, hobby-wise, whatever, all of the above.
Yes.
So go ahead, give us your background leading up to what you're doing now.
Sure. I'll start with well, maybe I'll go back to my bachelor's.
Sure.
I got my bachelor's in theater arts and dance.
Okay.
With a dance option. I really love dancing, but I couldn't see how I can help people with dancing. So, and I started off really late, like 20, 21 years old. So to be a dancer, and that you need to start a little younger. So, and I was in nursing before that, a year of nursing, and I realized while I was in nursing school, I realized that I really loved physical therapy, and I didn't know about physical therapy. That's where I encountered physical therapists for the first time. I still remember like it was yesterday when I walked into the room and wanted to do what physical therapists do, but the nurse in charge told me, "Oh, wait until the physical therapist comes and does that." And I'm like, "But I want to do that." So I'm like, "What's a physical therapist?" Anyhow, after that, it was like it took on a course of its own, and I ended up switching from nursing major to physical therapy. And for physical therapy, you just needed any bachelor's degree with the prerequisite classes. So any bachelor's, I thought, okay, let me just do dance because I had already taken some dance classes. So took the prerequisites a year, like a lot of science courses basically for kinesiology, physics, and stuff like that. So which I really enjoyed too. So I liked both the arts and the sciences at the same time. Then went to PT school in Western University in Pomona and got my doctorate, graduated in 2008, and then worked with kids for about a year, which was really awesome. I learned a lot when I worked with them. I learned a lot about actually the nervous system, the sensory issues, and how to kind of grasp their attention and how to interact with kids. So, and I love kids too, so that really helped me. I learned a lot in that first year right after graduation. And then I decided that I wanted to explore other age groups of physical therapy and other branches. So I left the pediatric clinic in Pasadena. It was called Center for Developing Kids. One of the best pediatric clinics I've ever seen, been to, worked. If anything ever, God forbid, happens, I would take my kid there, that kind of thing. So at the time, I don't know about now, but at the time it was one of the best. So after that, I went and worked in an outpatient clinic for about 6 months. It was for like the working class or middle age, we had clients from all ages, but that was really I learned a lot from working with older people, basically. At the same time, I realized I didn't want to, I kind of wanted to do something on my own. And because I had the ability to, if you have a physical therapy license, you can open up your own place. So I realized I had somebody in my life that was advising me to open up my own place. So kind of like hesitantly, I opened up my company, and at first it was I was doing home health, and I was doing the outpatient at the same time. And then slowly I gradually just started doing full-time home health. And when I did home health, I actually enjoyed that too, because I was working with older people over 65, and I had a really good memory working with from a childhood with older people, because I grew up with my grandma. I have a lot of memories with her, and they were really positive memories. So for whatever reason, I just enjoyed working with them. And I did that for a few years. At the same time, in the back of my mind, thinking I want to open up my own place, outpatient clinic. So, and that's about the time where I'm at Armand too. I think about 6 or 7 years into it, something like that, or maybe even 5. So opened up the outpatient, but I didn't really get it going. I closed that one after about a year, then waited, saved up some more money. I opened another one up that was much bigger and in a better place, and I had more equipment, was more ready. Then that didn't work either. So I closed that one. I did lose a little bit of money on that one. And that's when they were across from me. Their office was across from me. And then I came to a conclusion where I think that was around the time when 2015, when I decided I wanted to take yoga lessons, like a yoga teacher class, like teacher training class, to become more informed about the poses, about why each pose is this way and what it means, where the foot goes, where the hand goes, and all that, the postures basically. So at this point, though, the reason why I got interested in yoga is because going back to right before graduating, getting my doctorate degree, finishing in 2007, I had a really unforgettable experience. I went to my cousin. It was my birthday right after, like a few days after. She said, I want to take you somewhere really nice. I said, okay, who doesn't want to do that? Go somewhere nice. So she took me to a place called Lake Shrine. It's in Pacific Palisades. It's a nice little temple there. And as I walked towards the right, I still remember, like, there was like bushes, and I walked in, and the bushes kind of, out of the bushes, I see this beautiful small lake. And the first thing I noticed was the windmill chapel. It's a windmill. And as soon as I saw it, I had this like really strong, overwhelming feeling of I've found what I've been looking for. Like, I was like, I've been here before and I found it. Now it's like there, So I actually had this moment where if I was alone, I probably would have like cried like uncontrollably. I was resisting myself. And then all I felt like doing was like, after that, there was this feeling of I could just be a gardener here in this beautiful place all my life, for the rest of my life, and I'll be happy. That's the kind of feeling I had. So it was a very interesting, to this day, I won't forget that experience. It was, it left an impact. And I started like wondering why I had that feeling. And it was clear to me. I knew that it was my path. It's the Self-Realization Fellowship. So if you don't know, I don't know if you've heard about it. Basically, it's a fellowship, or the founder of the fellowship is Paramahansa Yogananda, and he wrote the book Autobiography of a Yogi, which is, by the way, the book that Steve Jobs gifted to everybody on the day of his funeral.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he read the book too. Obviously, he was a follower, but basically, it's about self-realization, yoga, and meditation. So I think I was already reading the book, or I hadn't. I started reading the book right after that. I can't remember, but basically, after that, it just took a course of its own, and I went into meditation. I was doing he has special meditation techniques you can sign up for and get the lessons. It just comes to your house, and it's a really good way of doing things on your own time and your own way. There's no rush, there's no time limits, there's no meetings, you don't have to go anywhere or do anything. It's very free as far as you can be a member and just, not worry about anything as far as meeting any type of deadlines. So, fast forwarding to 2015 is as I was doing the meditations, I wasn't really doing asanas. I wasn't doing yoga exercises, but I knew I had read that the exercises help with evolution of the spirit of the meditation. They help in meditation. So I knew I had to do it sooner or later. And then I think what triggered me actually deciding to get the teacher certificate was when I heard someone say, one of the teachers that I was taking hatha yoga with, she said that physical therapy, yoga is the oldest form of physical therapy. And I said, wait, well, if that's the case, I need to know what that is. I'm a physical therapist, And sure enough, learning more about it, every posture is, it actually has a specific reason for putting the place in a certain way, having the hands up, and it triggers stretching of the muscles, and which triggers nervous system, stretches the nerves, and which trigger an event of a cascade of events in the body. For example, if you arch the spine, lifting up your head and shoulders, there are certain receptors in the joints of the spine that actually sense this, and the message that they send to the body, to the brain, is we're waking up. This is like a uplifting movement, more energy and more alertness. It sends alertness to the body. When you're curving into the fetal position and rounding the back, it does the opposite effect. So basically, the poses are geared for that, for medical reasons. They're actually medical. They're not for physical appearance to make you look pretty, or you can put your head over your head, foot over your head. It's not just to look cool, but there's definitely purpose behind them. And that purpose I discovered slowly, only after taking, so when I took my first teacher training course in 2015, it was with a person named Carrie Janelle.
At that point, how long had you already been doing yoga?
At 2015, I had, on and off, I was doing small classes at the center, the fellowship center. They had it, but I hadn't really taken I took a couple of classes, and by my house where I live, they had a studio called Yoga Vibe on Hillhurst. It's still there, and I decided that I'm just gonna take their teacher training, because the teacher, Carrie Janelle, her teacher training included Ayurveda, which is the medical science of yoga, the sister science of yoga.
Okay.
So, and Ayurveda is what really fascinates me right now and drives my passion of learning. I'm literally learning Ayurveda right now. The word Ayurveda is Sanskrit, and it comes from two words, Ayur meaning life and Veda meaning knowledge. So it's translated to life knowledge. And so Ayurveda uses yoga poses, prescribes them to patients, and uses them for treatments. It could be for starting from scoliosis to emotional problems too, like someone has ADD, for example. So they can use certain postures to calm themselves down, or to focus, to get more into focus. Any balancing exercises or any grounding on the floor postures, they kind of help you focus better.
Is that a common thing that the Ayurveda?
Ayurveda is they have I think records. It's basically, I think they have records that go back. That's possibly 5 to 7,000 years old.
Hmm.
So they have written records of it on banana leaves, and they have archives of information of the different diseases. For example, diabetes. They have 20 different types of diabetes and where it comes from. So they have extensive amount of information and you can compare it with allopathic medicine, and it's very similar. Or the difference is Ayurveda describes it differently. So you can really, they break it down to the elements. Everything is composed of the 5 elements. So in everything, especially the human body, it's like you've got space. So space is inside the eyes. There's space in the lungs. There's space, and there's space in the intestines. There's space in the bones, bone structure, and then you've got air, which is in the lungs again, and there's oxygen again throughout the body. And then you've got fire, and fire is the metabolism, how fast the cells eat and burn calories, and that's kind of like how they explain it. And then they have water, and water's everything else. And then earth would be your bones and your teeth and your hair and your nails. So Ayurveda has a really cool way of explaining how the human body works. And according to Ayurveda, there's this timeline or an order of how the body makes the cells. For example, when you first eat food, the food goes into the body 5 days. First, it becomes so within the first 5 days, it becomes part of your white serum, like the white part of your blood. When you divide the blood, there's white serum, red plasma serum. So it becomes the plasma. Then the next 5 days, it builds the red blood cells. They're in order. And then after the red blood cells, it builds the muscle cells. Then after the muscle cells, whatever's left over goes to the fat cells. Then after the fat cells goes to the bones. Then from the bone marrow from the bones, it goes to the bone marrow. Then after the bone marrow is built, it goes to the reproductive vital fluids. So for men and women, whatever the fluid is. So basically, each one takes 5 days. So from the day you eat, say, your food, that's so they want to like 5 times 7. So there's 7 tissues orders. So by the end of day 35, it still affects your body. It's still in your system. It's building the tissues. It's going from one tissue to the other, basically. If this tissue doesn't need it, it sends it off to the other one. This uses it. If it's done with it, it sends it off to the other one. Whatever's left sends it to the other one. So if you're not eating enough or properly, maybe that last tissue isn't going to get, the best that it needs,
Right.
basically. So... And then it's just the whole, it's like so vast. I mean, so because of the teacher training, having this Ayurvedic background, that's how I started getting more and more into it. So right now, what I do is basically, I still do physical therapy in the clinic. I see patients, shoulder pain, neck pain, however, I see them with a different perspective. I advise them to do exercises, and then I also say, well, what's your diet like? What's your lifestyle? So Ayurveda is not just about the eating part, the food. It's also about your lifestyle. For example, we have a circadian rhythm. So like a internal clock. If the body is resting, if the body's supposed to be resting but it's not, it's going to have conflicts of like getting the job done. For example, if you're not sleeping by 10 o'clock, which is the time where you should be resting, you can increase the quote unquote fire, which is the heat, almost like the inflammation in the body. And if you stay up, it's not going to be good for the liver and the small intestine, because it starts to overwork the liver. You're stimulating the liver, which should be sleeping, and the body should be sleeping and resting. However, you're up, and so the liver is like overworking. And then when it's time, when finally you do go to sleep, it's not the liver time anymore. It's another organ time where it works. So it's it's like the window of opportunity for you to rest, but you don't do it, and so you get to miss that chance of. And it's okay if you do it once in a while, but if you start doing it every day, then and on top of that, let's say you drink and you do this and you do that, then it starts to take a toll, and it shows up. First, it shows up with vague symptoms, but then over time, it becomes more and more prominent. So, basically, I try to help them with that too. I give them a little advice on lifestyle and what will help them feel better. Like sometimes they'll have joint pain, arthritis, and arthritis can be a result of not having enough, or maybe too much constipation, let's just say. And that has, allopathic doctor would say that has nothing to do with joint pain, arthritis, but it has a lot to do with joint pain, because in Ayurveda, the colon is connected with the bones. So where the colon is where the large intestine is where the minerals get absorbed. So calcium, magnesium, zinc, and phosphorus. So they all go to the bones directly. So if you have constipation and like increased air and you're not getting the proper nutrition from your colon, you're going to have problems with your bones. So that's kind of like how Ayurveda ties or looks at the body and talks about, it also teaches you in a way how to take care of yourself for the rest of your life. Because once you know certain things, you can always go back to them and make sure you're doing them correctly. Like it's kind of like my teacher likes to say, the manual of your body, your physical, he calls it your spacesuit, or your Halloween costume for this lifetime. So there's a manual for it and how to live, and that's what Ayurveda does.
The reason I asked regarding if it's a common thing, because because I was talking with Armand, I think it was yesterday or something, and he mentioned that you do that, and then I was like, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, not a lot of people have.
Yeah, it's
very new, but a lot of Armenians in Armenia actually know about it, and a lot of it was actually pretty popular back in the 70s. In Germany, it's very popular. The World Health Organization actually derived their definition of health from Ayurveda, and they have recognized it as the traditional medicine. And there was several countries like Russia, France, I think Germany, I'm not sure if it's Sweden or Switzerland, and India recently adopted Ayurveda as part of their national healthcare system. So basically, if you have the insurance, it covers it.
Oh, okay.
Which is great. But here, there's a long way. So.
Yeah, because when you said it's new, you mean new as in like it's becoming more of a thing now?
I think it's becoming, people are getting more aware of it. There is a certain amount of awareness that I'm seeing myself. as opposed to before, say 10 years ago or 15 years ago. I personally got treated myself. I again for different reasons, digestive reasons, and I saw results, and I'm really happy with it. And then what really got me to decide to learn more about it is my dad's journey with it, and he's still going through it. But about a year ago, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's in I think 2013 or no, maybe, sorry, about a little bit, basically about 5 to 7 years ago. And I knew he had it before he got diagnosed because his hand was shaking, and I knew what it was. As a PT, we learn about those things and the symptoms. So I was really like, I hope it's not, but it was. So finally, 2 years after we went to the doctor's like, yeah, it's Parkinson's. Okay, so he started taking levodopa and carbidopa, which are dopamines, and dopamines are basically like legal drugs from the streets. He has to take it, and when he takes it, it feels better. He doesn't shake. So I don't know if you know about Parkinson's, but Parkinson's is basically the decrease of the brain producing dopamine, which is our brain's supposed to produce it all the time, but it stops producing and it starts to decrease. So there are a number of reasons why this happens. So when he was taking it, his shaking would stop, but then he had to up the doses. Like every few months, he had to go and they increased the dose. It went from like 3 pills a day to 9 pills a day.
Was that just because the body became more and more reliant on it?
Yes, the body becomes more dependent, and it becomes more desensitized in a way. So you have to just take more and more. There's no other way. And eventually, I had patients that had Parkinson's, and they used to take, I don't know, 12 pills or however many. And there comes a point where the pills don't help anymore. So they're just uncontrollably shaking. So in my dad's situation, I like couldn't bear the thought of him going into that direction and becoming bedbound or wheelchair and whatnot. So having really strong belief in Ayurveda, I was like, let's try this. And for some reason, luckily, I'm blessed with a father who was open to it, and he was willing to change or try something, and we did it. He like, my mom helped with the diet, and we made all these mixes like milk and garlic, home remedies, and he was taking herbs too with liquid fluid, some sort of medicine. And then he went through 2 treatments of Abhyanga, which is warm oil, medicated oil massage of the whole body. And then the other one was another massage, but it requires like a ball of rice. You put the rice in the oil, and then you hit the body with the rice, the 2 rice balls, I guess. So I forgot the names. They all have names. So they basically, what the oil is supposed to do is the oil nourishes the nervous system. The oil feeds the myelin sheath, which is a covering on the nerve cells. Imagine a nerve is a wire. It's got the beginning and the end. So the wire has this myelin sheath, which is this rubbery covering, and it's insulating and allows the message to go through the electricity. So if this gets interrupted, the electricity doesn't travel as well, and that's what kind of happens with multiple sclerosis or ALS. So the oil feeds the myelin sheath and insulates it and makes it easier for the electrical signals to go through. So sure enough, we saw like positive results like within a few months, maybe 2 to 3 months. His shaking started getting better. um his memory, his skin, everything just started much, to a point where his the practitioner actually started telling him to decrease his medication,
Hmm.
the dosage. And so of course we're like taking a risk here, but he decreased it just a little bit. Nothing happened. He was good. No symptom. The symptoms didn't get worse. So, and then a little bit later, he decreased a little bit more. So he went from like 9 pills a day down to 3 pills a day.
Oh, awesome.
So, um, that was very encouraging, and it was very like, wow, And then in the process, after we were done with the treatments, um, I was like, we're begging. He smoked. He even smoked at the time, and he still got really good results. So I was begging him to please stop smoking. You'll get much better, and da da da. So he actually even did that. After 50 years of like non smoking, he was able to quit with everybody's help and everything. So um, I give him props. He that really stuck through it. So we're still not done. There's a process called Panchakarma, which is a really kind of a very strong cleanse of the body, an extreme where they do like stomach cleanse, colon cleanse, and they hit the body from all directions of treatment, because it's not, you don't just treat through medicine, herbs. You can treat the body through light therapy, sound therapy, and they use all of those therapies now in different places where they just specialize in those things. And there's oil massage therapy, and there's Marmot Therapy, which is points on the body, where those points are actually like where there's nerve plexus crossing, like a bundle of nerves that are crossed there. So those points, when you press on them, each one triggers different things. So Marmot Therapy is another thing that I'm really interested in. Maybe one day, maybe. But so there's Marmot Therapy, and then there's yoga. So you have to do yoga too. When you're doing Ayurveda, yoga is a major part of it, physical. And not to mention lifestyle, sleeping early, waking up early, and finally the food. Once you're done taking the herbs, the food becomes your medicine. There's a Ayurvedic proverb that says, it goes something like, with proper food and lifestyle, medicine is of no need. With improper food and lifestyle, medicine is of no use. So even if you use it, it's not going to help you, because it's only a band-aid effect. It's not, you're not getting to the root of the problem, which is your lifestyle and your food. So food is kind of, it should be fun to eat, but you should also look at it as in, how do I heal my body with the food? So if you think of it that way, I've felt the difference, because we eat all the time. Food is the number one thing that affects the body. You are what you eat, literally. You will get results when you change the way you eat. There's no doubt about it. If you always eat French fries, you will definitely see the results. If you always eat hamburgers, you'll definitely see it. So yes, you can totally affect your body with food. And that's what Ayurveda does. And lifestyle too.
So is your dad still, or did your dad start doing yoga then?
Oh
Was that
yeah.
part-
Yeah, he's also
How was
he's
how
also
was the
doing, like,
beginning? Was there a period where like you have to do it?
he
He's like, no, I don't want to.
no. I'm telling you, I'm blessed with like the greatest
Everything. He was all in on all of it.
Yeah, he went all in. He jumped in.
That's
I mean, I don't know if it was the fact that my brother was also just got married or getting married, so it was giving him hope to like.
awesome.
And then he had a grandkid. My brother had a kid, and now the second one's on the way. So that was all like motivation for him to
Could be, yeah.
do it. So, but this was before he got married too. I don't know if he was married. Yeah, I think he was already married at the time. But yeah, we have a really interesting relationship. Whatever I tell him, he'll just do it. For as if he knows, it's for him,
Right.
for his, he trusts me in that way, like and I'm happy that how it worked. I mean, I to a certain degree I knew, but when it helped him, I was like, okay, this is good. We're gonna stick with it. At least for him, it's working. So I don't know about anybody else, but for him, we're still sticking to the stuff that he's not supposed to eat, but yeah, we're gonna go back to do one more, the Panchakarma, see what happens.
Well, best of luck with that. Hopefully that continues on that path.
I'm documenting it too. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
He will. I think he will. He takes my yoga classes. I do live YouTube live yoga classes, and then my videos are still up there. So he turns them on and he does it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So he was receptive to it. So you've mentioned you try and treat other patients that's applicable with that.
Yeah.
How receptive are those people generally?
Sometimes, well, I have the person that, like, from one extreme to the other. Like, there's this one guy, he's a younger guy, and he says, when I told him, like, you know, even just telling him, like, you know, you have to watch what you eat. Eating the right food will help you. He goes, do you really believe that? Though, do you think food will make me feel better? I'm like, oh my God.
How young is younger? Like roughly?
He's like 21 or 20.
I guess that's a fair question.
Yeah,
because still fair.
No, because my dad's like 60 something. So I mean, and he's my dad. He knows that I want the best for him. But this guy's like totally like, are you sure food is gonna change the way I feel? Right. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know where to start with him. Then I'm like, well, you know, try and see. All you have to do is just try it once, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But yeah, and then I get people from my cousins when I see them, like if they have, I feel, you know, very much like I have to offer this process because it might help them, and if it does, great. If it doesn't, at least you tried. So a couple of my cousins, they were open to it, so they went and they're actually right now trying it out. We'll see. I'll let you guys know how it works.
Yeah, because I'm curious, because like I said, since I haven't heard of it, and you're saying it's kind of becoming more prominent, at least this is specifically US wise, I'm assuming you mean more, because you mentioned other countries, it's more recognized and it's accepted with insurance and such. Mm-hmm. In the medical community in the United States, or at least in Southern California, or even in your readings, whatever you've seen, how is it received? How is Ayurveda viewed?
Well, I'll tell you this. One experience with person who had just graduated medical school and she was doing residency in the emergency room. She personally had an experience with an Ayurvedic doctor, and she told me that when it comes to emergency stuff, broken bones, this surgery, that, she would come to the allopathic medicine, which is Western. But she goes, if anything, that she had anything going on with digestion, she would go to an Ayurvedic doctor, or unexplained symptoms that an allopathic medicine doctor wouldn't be able to figure out.
Are those doctors easy to find?
Ayurvedic doctors? There are, there's not a lot, I'll tell you that.
And is that like a specific, is it a specific degree education or whatever? Yeah,
there is a university in Arizona, I believe. Dr. Vasant Lad is the kind of like the main person who brought it here and established the university. He's also the teacher of my teacher. He's still teaching, I believe. So there, the class at the university does give takes students, and it's like a medical course. It's a 4-year program. And you go, I think it's like maybe about 30 or maybe even 50 students at a time. I'm not sure the amount. And I was actually looking into, I wanted to go and learn pulse reading, because there's a thing called pulse reading with Ayurveda. They read your pulse, and from your pulse they can tell if you have parasites, they can tell if you smoke weed.
How accurate is it?
It's very accurate.
Really?
Yeah, it's very accurate.
Let's test it on Steve.
Yeah. I mean, at least in my experience, has been accurate because um, I personally had, I think it was like 2 weeks prior, I had a little bit of weed. Not even, it's like only a single inhale on a vape, just a single. And I had even forgotten, I didn't even remember. So when I went, he checked the pulse and goes, have you had any CBD stuff? And I'm like, what? I'm like, no. I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I remember I just had like that one little. And I'm like, how did you tell? It's like your pulse. I'm like, oh, okay. And it just kind of like set me back. Like, okay, it does something. Any type of stimulant
But
does.
for that, that's
Yeah,
interesting
for
because
that
it's
long.
been for
It
2 weeks and just off of one.
It wasn't even like a full
Yeah.
inhale. It was like a little.
That's crazy.
It stays in your system for 6 months.
Keep note of that.
In the pulse, you can tell from the pulse for 6 months. The other day, I actually felt the first time I felt the pulse of a person who had parasites, and it was pretty exciting.
How would you describe it? Someone has a pulse that has parasites. What is it?
So you have to. There's different levels of pressure you put on the pulse.
Also, what do you do?
You're holding the pulse with 3 fingers, and then you first you go really gentle, or what it depends on what you're looking for. For the parasite, you go really gentle. So I'm giving kind of like, so the first time I felt it, I got like pretty excited because I felt it and the way the pulse went through the fingers was like fast, palpitating, like almost flickering. So he was like, "Oh, that's parasite." I'm like, "Oh my God, I felt that." So yeah, it's fascinating. There's more to it. Like you can press it down and there's like, so the body, the 5 elements are actually grouped into 3, so you can it's easier to explain, it's easier to treat. So these 3 groups, they're called the constitutions. They're called Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. This is going to be a very you're going to hear this a lot if you read about Ayurveda. Vata meaning it's the group with space and air mostly. It's combined together. Pitta is fire, mostly fire. There's very little bit of oil and water in it, just very little fluid. And then Kapha is water and earth, mostly earth and some water. So Vata, Pitta, Kapha is how we communicate in Ayurveda. Every person has all 3 of these doshas or constitutions in their body, but 1 or 2 of them are more prominent than the other. So, for example, in allopathic medicine, we have hectomorphs, mesomorphs, and endomorphs, right? The type of bodies. It kind of goes with these. So Vata is like the hectomorph, which is tall and skinny.
Does anything have to do with 6? What's hecto 6, right? Nothing.
No.
Just coincidence.
Hectomorph is the thin and tall body type. When the one who eats all the time never gets fat. Fast metabolism. They're always thinking. They're like, they can forget to eat. They can get into work so much. And they're very creative. They have a creative part. So that's the Vata type of body. Predominant Vata. And then there's Pitta. Pitta is like the mesomorph, muscular, like built, with big muscles and husky, or and they tend to be like straightforward and angry, or they could get angry easily, and they're like sharp. They're intellectual. They're kind of sharp too, thinking wise. So they're the mesomorphs, morph type of body, but Pitta also describes the mind. The type of Pitta mind is the one that gets angry quickly, and another one I would say intelligent. They're bright people. And then you have the Kapha body, which is the endomorphs, I believe, which is the rounded body, more
fat,
cuddly. Yeah, they have a little bit. They're more curves than the muscles and the skinny. and they're more slow, and they're more
Physically or
physically and mentally too.
okay.
They're more like chill and easygoing, and they're like the yes ma'am, yes yes sir kind of person. And mentally they're loving. They're very easily they love easily. They're like you want to like, they're like the teddy bear you know want to have. So so those are the difference between, and not everyone's purely one or the other. Everyone has, like, let's say, if I look at you, I can probably say you're more like a Pitta first, predominant, and then Kapha, and then Vata would be the last one.
I don't know how many people would agree with the Kapha, but definitely with the Pitta.
Pitta for sure,
they would agree with
but
that.
Pitta would be your predominant, like the number one, and then maybe Kapha, and then it would be Vata. Possibly. I would have to ask you more questions about symptoms or whatever. So things like hair, nails, skin, body type, eating, bathroom habits, and this and that will all tell you what the person is, more or less. And then what you can, with Ayurveda, is you determine what they are, and then you see what their imbalance is. So maybe their Pitta is too high. It's gotten too much. They have too much heat in their body. So what you do is you tell them, okay, you got to stop eating the foods that cause more fire, which is like chili peppers, salt, and fermented foods, and stuff like that, and to balance your fire, because otherwise it will affect you mentally too. It'll make you angry. You won't be able to control your anger as easily. If
you're really eating foods like that can affect.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yes. This is what the wow moment is with Ayurveda. It's like food can actually affect your mental status, like your mental, and they're finding that out now in modern medicine with all the gut bacteria, and then
I've heard a lot about that. Calling
the gut as the second brain, sometimes even the first brain, because it actually makes the decisions for you sometimes. Sometimes it's the like if you have parasites, it's the parasites craving the sugar. You're not craving sugar. Your body's not hungry for sugar. It's the parasite that wants the sugar. So you eat sugar because you have parasites. That's like what Ayurveda explains.
I want to ask something about the parasites. So like you said, you can that pulse reading, you can pick it up from there, right?
Yeah, I mean, not me, but they can. Yeah, the practitioner.
Is there like another confirmation they do after that?
Yeah.
What is that? Like a blood test?
Looking at the eyes, looking at the tongue. Blood tests will not pick up some parasites, because the parasites will not. They're smart enough to hide and not go into the feces and go out.
Jeez.
So
the pulse reading is more accurate.
Yes.
Dang.
Yeah. And then you can get like, what they do is they give you herbs. The herbs make the parasites kind of drunk, and so they come out of this with the stool.
How does someone get parasites?
Not washing their food. Their salads, veggies, fruits, they don't wash them properly, and they eat them raw like that. Stuff like that. Because it's, if you look at the salad microscopically, there's a lot of bugs in there. And the eggs, they can hide. And yeah. So gross. Yeah. But they're not like, they're super treatable. If you have a good digestive fire, meaning good metabolism, your when you eat the food, your stomach has this hydrochloric acid and the other enzyme that there's I forgot the other name of the enzyme. Basically, if you have these nice juices that burn all this stuff up, you're not going to get parasites, because you're going to burn that stuff up. It's not going to go through. But if someone doesn't have that nice Kindle, the juices that are, I mean, you have the hydrochloric acid is like 5.0 acidic, which is pretty acidic. It could burn a hole through here. So that can kill a lot, but only if it's proper, only if you've got enough of it, and you're not eating the wrong, and even combining the foods, like combining banana with milk is like the worst thing you can do, and you've got all these people making banana milkshakes.
Why is that?
It creates a toxic, morbid metabolic waste.
Really? I do like
banana with milk. Yeah. You can probably do like banana with almond milk or
I do
coconut milk. Yeah. But like
it's actual dairy milk.
Yeah, dairy milk is banana with banana. It's not. not the best.
What do you just because it got brought up?
Yeah.
How do you feel with dairy products? Are you?
Oh, so Ayurveda, I'll tell you how Ayurveda feels with
I
dairy
feel like you're
products.
gonna say they don't like it.
No, actually, they're okay with dairy products. The only thing is, like, certain people cannot digest A1 cow milk. They can digest A2.
What's the difference?
So A1, I think I'm saying it right. A1 is the one with the cow, black and white cow with the back flat.
Flat back.
Yeah, like
Okay.
you've seen your regular
The
black
regular
and white
cow.
cows.
Okay.
The A2 ones are like the cows that are solid one color and usually brown or dark brown,
Okay.
and they have this hump on the
Mhm.
back. They're like Indian cows more, or just a different type of cow. So
Okay.
that they're used to they're that type of. I think the protein is different, and something about the milk is more easily digestible. And then the so the other thing with dairy is yogurt. Like, it's okay to have yogurt, and yogurt just has probiotics. There's stuff you can do with yogurt to make it a really good probiotic at home for yourself. Like, mix it with water, blend it, and then mix some cumin in it and drink half a cup after each meal. It's like the best probiotic ever you can do. Make it yourself. So that's okay. And then one of the best things that Ayurveda uses as medicine is called golden liquid gold, which is ghee, pretty much clarified butter. So it's when you cook the butter slowly, you clear it out of all the proteins and all the chains, the I guess acidic chains leave, and so it becomes this pure fat that's actually anti-inflammatory too. So it's actually good for people. It actually helps if you don't eat too much of it. Obviously, it actually helps lower cholesterol too.
Can that be used to cook?
We use it for cooking, for
Yeah, 'cause I
everything.
think my mom makes that.
Yes, yeah. My mom used to make it in Armenia. She came here. She stopped making it because of thinking it's bad for cholesterol, increases cholesterol. But on the contrary, it actually decreases it if you don't overdo it, of course. So
What about cheese? Cheese is good.
Oh,
bad?
cheese. I've never. Cheese is bad.
It's
Cheese.
so good.
I know. It's my weakness. I love cheese, but I can't have it. So a lot of times cheese. So cheese is basically condensed, concentrated bacteria, protein. So it's like a growth of this thing, But it's okay for, I think, Kapha people and Vata people. It's fresh cheese is okay for Pitta people, like the soft one, not aged, but like mozzarella soft.
Like that, the one with the cow on it. What's it called? Baby Bell, something like that.
Babybel.
Those red ones. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, those are soft, right? I think.
Yeah, I
But
eat
even
so many
more
of those.
fresh. So yeah, you don't want to eat too much cheese.
So easy.
Maybe once a week is okay. But if you have it every day, you will definitely. So what happens is when you have foods that your body has hard time processing it and eliminating it, what happens is over time that toxic metabolic morbid waste it starts to accumulate so much that it begins to go into the interstitial fluid, which is in between the cells, and it starts to blind the cells. It's like it's a sticky substance that makes everything blurry. The cell membrane cannot recognize what's good for it and doesn't take the right nutrition. Even before that, it might start to clog your small intestine, the villi, and then you can't absorb nutrients from the villi. So it starts from there and then goes into, if it continues and your body, you're eating too much of it, but your body doesn't have enough time to eliminate. So now this starts to accumulate. Over the years, it starts to accumulate. And maybe at first you have the symptoms once a week, then you start having them once every 3 days, then once every day you have the symptom. And then if it continues, there's stages, different stages. Like it may end up going to a place where you cannot go back. There's up to the third stage you can reverse it. Then there's a fourth stage where it becomes more black. The symptoms become more black and white, and allopathic medicine can now, well, not yet. At the fifth stage, allopathic medicine now diagnoses you and says, okay, or the person, and says, okay, you have diabetes, or the person has gout. You can't go. That's it. Once the person has gout, they can't go back and not having the gout. But with Ayurveda, they can maintain it, suppress it, so it doesn't make it dormant. It doesn't come out, basically. But once the body is at a place where it's already had it, it kind of like it's gonna still carry. You have to be careful, basically.
So is Ayurveda in those instances the most effective way to maintain once you already have it?
In my personal opinion, yes, because it's using food. It's not making you take medicine, which may affect other organs. You're your own doctor. If you want to get better, you just eat better foods, and you know what foods not to eat and what foods to eat, and lifestyle, a little bit of exercise, and sleeping early, waking up early.
Why is this not more prevalent? Why is then Ayurveda not more thing? If this is the case,
I don't know. Good question. I think people are waking up to it more and more.
Is it? Do you think it's just like because
I think it's ignorance, a little bit of ignorance, and a little bit of the part where the unknown for people.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I know nothing about any of that stuff. I try and like medical stuff, how the body. Like, I try to read about it. I just get bored almost immediately and I stop. But
I think it doesn't come up until you have help.
Exactly.
You need help of your health, and you're like, okay, I really need help. This sucks. Every day it hurts. I want to change this.
Exactly.
Then it's like,
and then like I guess it's just the way like we're kind of conditioned is like we're usually like if something hurts, here's the pill for it, or here's that. So you assume
a lot of
best thing is that.
Yeah, a lot of people will go to the doctor and say, "Why does my head hurt?" or "My head hurts." Doctor says, "Here, take Advil," or whatever. No doctor ever sits down and tries to figure out why you have a headache.
Do they do that because they don't care? They're making money.
They don't know.
They don't. So it's you think it's mostly ignorance?
Yeah, honestly, from what I know, headaches could be from dehydration, or from it could even be from too much watching TV, or But in Ayurveda, headaches. There are 3 types of headaches. There's Vata, Pitta, Kapha type of headache. So Vata is more in the front, and Pitta is in the middle, Kapha is in the back. So you got to determine why this person's having Vata headaches or Kapha headaches. You start asking, okay, what do you eat? What time do you wake up? After you wake up, do you go to the bathroom or not? Do you feel hungry after you wake up? All those things make a difference. I mean, this is like I cannot tell you how thorough Ayurveda is. It just takes everything, and from the tip of the nail to the hair, and just analyzes it.
So how can we learn more about that? Let's say like what would you recommend? Is there a books, studies?
There
papers?
are definitely books. There my teacher's teaching it. I wished for this and I received it. I wanted to learn Ayurveda, and I was preparing to go to the school to learn at the school how to do pulse reading. Instead, by coincidence, and I don't really believe in coincidences. I think everything has a trigger, something that caused it, cause and effect. So I met my teacher, Ashwin. And so he is right now teaching me 1-on-1 or 2. There's another student too, which is exactly how I wanted it. However I manifested it, it happened. It was meant to be. I don't know. But right now I'm learning that way, and that's to me that's the way to learn, because you really get that full attention of the teacher instead of going to the university. And I would still get it, but when you're
Well, it's just
50,
you and that
yeah,
person.
when you're 50-1 versus 1-1 or 2-1, there's no comparison
Yeah,
to
definitely.
the type of knowledge you're gonna get.
Is there the people that you know that are in this, including yourself, is there certain, I guess, personality characteristics that seem to align with people that
That
are
do the practitioners.
Yes.
It's a good question you asked, because I recently, my teacher actually said that people that are Pitta predominant, because Pitta has to do with the intelligence, and people that are more intelligent are drawn to medicine, not just Ayurveda, but any medical profession. They're drawn to that. So yeah, more like, and I'm more Pitta. I'm Pitta than Vata than Kapha. I'm sorry, I'm Pitta than, yeah, I'm Pitta Vata Kapha, I think. I have to go back to my notes. I forgot. I think my imbalance is Pitta Vata, so I need to watch out from those foods, not stay away from Pitta Vata foods. Like Vata food is like something that aggravates Vata is like raw vegetables,
Uncooked.
bread. Yeah, raw vegetables, bread. Bread has a lot of, so Vata is air and space. So bread has a lot of air and space in it. And Vata, it aggravates it. It makes it worse, basically.
Is there any bread that's good?
Like pita bread or lavash is good, or the naan bread. Those are flat breads, and preferably fresh baked. Like tortillas.
Oh.
Tortillas are fresh baked tortillas are great instead of the European breads, because it doesn't have a lot of air in it. So that would be an alternative for a Vata person.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you feel about beef? Is beef good or bad?
Again, beef.
Or
again,
it's the moderate. Is it the
with Ayurveda? Yeah, with Ayurveda, that's a good question, because Ayurveda says that if you're born into a family or into parents that have been eating meat, and then it's in your genetics, you can eat it, you can digest it. It's you might need it actually, and then if you ever come to a point where you want to stop eating it, you have to do it gradually, like over a year,
Really?
period of time. And then for a year, see how your body does. And if your body's okay with it, then continue not eating it. But if it's not okay with it, you got to go back to eating it, or at least some sort of protein.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm trying to remember when this whole thing with beef is bad started. At least that I started to hear about. Because my mom will even do it too. She's like, I don't want to keep making beef so often. I'm like, but it's good. Just please.
It's another thing with like one of the, it's a really big topic. I read a book called Fit for Life. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Sounds familiar.
It's an older book written in the 60s, 70s, and it's all about mixing foods, the right foods together. So you don't want to mix like protein with another protein. So if you're eating meat, you don't want to mix cheese with it, because it's heavy. Again, creates more heavy, toxic, morbid metabolic waste. And you don't want to have grains with meat. Grains and protein should not mix.
Grains,
yeah. Like, so rice,
it's like a burger.
Rice and exactly like what you're not supposed to eat.
It's such a discouraging message.
There's a lot of so in that book, it also talks about how fruits should be eaten separately without anything. It should not be mixed. And Ayurveda also says very strictly, fruits should be, it's like eat it alone or leave it alone. That's the thing with fruits.
It's so funny you're mentioning the combinations, because I think it was literally yesterday or the day before. I was just bunch of different things.
Eating, right?
And
I know, I've had that.
I was doing it, and then as I was doing it, I'm like, none of this makes any sense. I'm like, does it really matter? I'm like, whatever. I'm like, I thought I felt fine in the moment, and I ended up, but obviously I don't consistently.
Right. So Ayurveda explains this fruit eating and combining fruit with other things. When you eat the fruit with another food item, it's when it starts to digest in the stomach, it becomes sticky, and then again it becomes really hard for the body to to disintegrate it and really digest it and then absorb it, and it creates waste too. And then another thing, like, so if you eat it 2 hours before a meal or after a meal, 2 hours after. Another thing is honey. Like, never put honey in hot water. When you put it over 90 degrees in over 90 degree water, it becomes sticky again and it becomes waste again. It just, again, for another waste for the body to process.
That's
out.
common with tea, right?
Yeah,
so don't do it.
Do it when it's really like more lukewarm, not when it's hot.
What if you do the honey like with a spoon and then the water on top? Is that essentially the same thing?
It's okay if the water is not super hot.
Okay, but if it is, then you may as well be mixing. It's the same effect.
I mean, another thing like Ayurveda advises against is having super hot water and super cold water, because when you have it, your body has to change the temperature. You may even burn some tissue cells with hot water. Especially with cold water, it's if you eat food and you drink this like super size, cold, ice cold Coca-Cola or even water, it cools down the digestive fluids. And again, it kind of quote unquote cools down the fire and you can't digest the food as well. And then the food sits there for like extra, and instead of 2 hours later, it's supposed to move from the stomach. It sits there for like 4 hours. And then you eat again because you're just used to eating, but you're not really hungry. And then you're creating this extra bear on the stomach to do. And it's like, so feeling that hunger is important, knowing, when to eat is important. Also, when you eat, the first 2 hours, the food moves from the stomach to the duodenum and into the small intestine for another 2 hours there. And then it moves from the small intestine to the colon, another 2 hours there. So the whole process takes 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours, depending on how fast your metabolism is. So when you eat, technically, you don't want to interrupt that process. You shouldn't snack 4 to 6 hours after you eat. You shouldn't eat anything 4 to 6 hours if you want to have a really good digestive system. So I was used to eating snacks 2 hours after food, which was like horrible, because what I was doing is I was stopping this process and eating something new where my body was like, oh, we got something new, so let's stop this and do this. So, and then I wasn't digesting the food well there.
Yeah, that's conflicting with some stuff that I've heard as well. Like I've heard trying like 3-hour increments of food, stuff like that.
Yeah, but it depends. Maybe they do smaller portions.
Yeah.
That's different.
Oh,
if you have like smaller portions, possibly it's possible for you to digest it faster.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
If you have a very efficient digestive system, it'll go fast. So that's probably okay. Every 3 hours would probably work. But if you eat a meal and 2 hours later you snack, and then the meal was kind of good hearty meal, you're gonna have a hard time digesting it.
When you were talking about the extreme heat or extreme cold on the drinking,
right? Yeah.
That, in addition to that, like over time, like if you do it consistent, like if you always have a really hot cup of tea or you always have really cold, can't that over time affect your esophagus too?
Right. I think I remember reading that you can even actually damage it and actually become like scar tissue, and if I'm not mistaken, it like can lead to cancer.
Yeah,
I've heard that. Yeah, super hot's never good. Yeah.
Is that why you took the room temp water over the cold?
Yeah, I actually. So your body, before it absorbs it, it changes the temperature to its own temperature, then absorbs it. So if you have too cold or too hot, the body has to do work to change the temperature to its own temperature, and then it's a body temperature. Room temperature is closest to body temperature. If it's lukewarm, it'll absorb even faster. So if it's like in the morning when you wake up, you should have a nice big glass of warm water. Because all night long you're dehydrating, you're letting out air, and your body's using the water to do all this work, cleansing and everything. And then in the morning you're putting it back. And it also helps you go to the bathroom, which is when you should go every morning.
Well, ideally.
Good. That's good. A lot of people don't go every morning and they think it's okay.
Really?
It's actually not okay.
Steven, do you do that? Nice.
Everyone,
At least there's another person.
Yeah, no, I know a few people that like every 2-3 days, and It's not good, but what can you do?
I was watching this one podcast. It was this comedian, and they have this. I'm actually curious on your take. Do you know
Mhm.
Dr. Drew,
It
the
sounds,
white haired guy, kind of
yeah,
buff,
it sounds,
glasses? He's
yeah,
very
I think
very
so.
popular
I
guy.
think so.
Probably you've
If I
heard of
see
him.
the face,
Let me
I'll
show you a picture.
definitely.
So anyway, I was watching. Well, I've watched several episodes of this podcast, and they have this like guy that this camera guy or behind the scenes dude. This is him.
Okay, yeah.
Does it look
Yeah,
familiar?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
he's like a. There's like those celebrity rehab shows and stuff. Like
Uh-huh.
he's done that. He has like a radio show,
Uh-huh.
stuff like that. So this employee of this comedian on his podcast, they were because on this podcast they always talk about pooping. So they were talking like, and one time they asked him like, well, how often do you poop? And the guy's like, once a week.
Oh my gosh.
And
Ouch.
then he's like, what do you mean? And then he's like, yeah, I just
That's
don't feel a
too
need to do it. Like I don't hold it. I just don't it doesn't come. And
low.
then they kept bringing it up with this guy, and then because then they do something with Dr. Drew too. So that one time they're like, dude, go talk with him, or like let's bring him on, let's see what he says. And then
Yeah.
Dr. Drew's like, it might sound weird, but certain people,
Yeah.
it's just how it works. Like it's not a bad thing. It's just that's just how their body does it.
Yeah, it is just how their body does it, but over time that particular way can actually lead to something worse.
Because when I first heard that, I'm like, that is insane.
Yeah, over time it's actually not good. At least the Ayurvedic.
And then what that same guy ended up doing that was crazier. He's like he intentionally tried to keep it in. After they started kind of talking about it, he's like, well, let's see how long I can go. I think if I'm remembering correctly,
2 weeks.
No, I think he was
More.
Yeah, he went beyond. He almost like he was approaching a month, I think.
That's
or something.
very
bad. Yeah,
because okay, imagine.
I'll just share the backstory because they asked him like, why are you like this? Why do you do this?
Mm-hmm.
And it was very interesting that when he shared, he's like, when I was a kid one time, I was in the bathroom. He's like, I was a child. He's like, I was in the bathroom. My mom was like, hurry up, we gotta go.
Oh,
and then he's like, I just
held it up.
I just brought it back up and I left.
Oh my god.
And he's like, since then, I've just ended up being like that. I was like,
oh
oh my goodness.
That's definitely, yeah. Normally, kids will go every day.
Yeah.
That's how animals go every day. No one normally healthy person does not go once a week, even twice, every 2 days. So what happens is, imagine you create the waste, and instead of cleaning out the waste from your house, instead of throwing out the trash, you just leave it inside the house, and you just
perfect analogy.
It goes back into the blood system because it's in the colon, and the colon is absorbing, and it's going the toxins just circulating in the brain, and the gut and the brain are all in the same sack. I don't know if you guys know.
Nope.
It's all in the same bag. So whatever neurotransmitter is in the gut is in the brain too.
I guess maybe that's another reason why they say second brain, huh?
Yes. Some people actually consider it the first brain, depending on how affected you are.
Yeah, the whole
by your
gut bacteria thing too, I've started to hear more recently as well.
It's very real. It's very real. You really are what you eat. It's very real. It does affect you focus. It affects your focus. It affects your attention, everything. I mean, I can't. After having a bowel movement, you feel lighter and clearer and more energized in a way, because the toxins just left your body.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just as simple as that. So yeah, holding it in is definitely.
Oh, we have a question from the audience. Yeah.
Sure.
Is there? It's kind of weird to talk about such a thing as too many bowel movements. Like, what's
Yes.
normal?
In case it wasn't audible, the question was, can you poop too much?
Too many times, yes.
Yeah.
And this is called an imbalance too, and this is a Pittai Imbalance. So Pittai Imbalance is when somebody, for example, I know someone who eats, and maybe within half an hour or an hour they go to the bathroom, or even right away.
Is this not
sometimes. Good? No.
We were talking about this yesterday.
So what happens is, of course, you have to know what your stool should look like. So a healthy stool is like, it's floating, it's formed, kind of like a banana shape, and doesn't stick to the walls of the toilet. And it's a, poop color, brownish, whatever, not black, not yellow, not green, So the fast ones, if it's any, like if it's soft, like a soft serve ice cream, it's not good. It's not supposed to be soft, and it's not supposed to be sticky, and it's not supposed to go down and heavy into the water.
Like,
Again,
boom.
it's supposed to. So like, yeah, if you it needs to be a floater. So there's, yeah, so if usually if they go 3 times a day, up to twice is okay. Maybe once in the morning and probably once in towards another evening, 5-6 o'clock. But anything more than that is an imbalance. And again, if the poop is like too soft or
What if they're all normal, though?
diarrhea,
Like, let's say, I don't know, you go over that,
you can.
but if they're normal,
It's very possible if someone has a very healthy digestive system and they eat a lot of food and at the same time they burn it fast, and
maybe is that more like for athletes, for example? It seems more thing.
Possibly, yeah. So yeah, it is possible. Nothing's impossible. It's just rare. It's very rare that a person goes 3 times a day and they're normal.
Yeah.
So-
Because like coffee, for example, is like that's what's like said, right? Coffee is like,
Yes. Coffee, what coffee does is it stimulates the sympathetic nervous system,
the sympathetic
Yeah.
nervous system.
because it's an upper. It makes you go like fight or flight, right? You're ready to fight or flight. So when it activates the sympathetic nervous system, it could trigger a bowel release. So when you're gonna fight or flight, you need to be empty.
That's so funny.
So you sometimes
makes
it'll
sense.
trigger it, or even like anxiety. Sometimes anxiety triggers it. Like you hear something scary, or you get very scared and anxious, and all of a sudden you got to go to the bathroom. And
Oh, is
it's
that
all-
why sometimes like those ones, like
diarrhea.
that because sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
I'm like, I gotta pee.
Yeah, pee. Yeah, I don't know about pee. Maybe pee that does that too when you go pee too. But definitely, I know people who have chronic diarrhea because they have chronic anxiety.
Oof.
They never have like it's imbalance of the pitta. Anxiety is pitta, so
That's rough.
definitely and different emotions are associated with different organs too. So like kidneys is associated with fear, and then anxiety is stomach, and liver, and liver's anger, small intestine's anger. Like if you're angry all the time, your liver's getting this stress of anger.
Yeah, we're not
So-
taught anything like this at any point in our lives.
Never.
In the settings that you would expect to be
Never.
educated.
Yeah,
I've
it's so important to know, like, again, how to live.
yeah.
How to live.
Like the
Yeah.
depth that you've gone, and I'm sure we've barely scratched any
Oh
level.
yeah, totally.
But just the amount that you've
This is-
shared, like none of this was like
Ever
all of this is almost entirely new information
yeah,
to me.
yeah.
And it's only sort of recently that I've somewhat kind of been more mindful of like,
Mhm.
because before I was like what you were describing, where it's like the metabolism is like
Mhm.
as soon as you eat it, it's like you're already
Go.
ready to go eat something else. Like it just
Right.
immediately would digest.
Mhm.
For like I want to say from like up to like maybe 22ish, I was like that.
Mhm.
And I'm still sort of there.
Yeah.
But I'm feeling the decline of it.
Okay.
So since it's starting, I'm like, oh, I can't do it anymore. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, now I'm kind of been
Be
more mindful.
conscious.
I try to be. I still get very irresponsible with it, but I try and be mindful of okay, what does what? Like
Mhm.
eating this causes what for me? Eating
Mhm.
this causes what for me?
Right.
But I don't think people like that because, like, I mean, now that I think about it, that kid asking, like, really, do you think the food
Yeah.
is that
He's
big
like,
of a
"You
thing?
do you really believe that?" He's like, "Do you really believe? Come on.
Yeah.
You believe the food really affects you?" I'm like, okay, I can't even, like, where do you start from here?
I mean, that's something you should be like trained with, like,
Yeah.
as soon as
Yeah. I
you
mean,
can understand. I would think.
yeah, this is a kid coming. It's also cultural. He's coming from a place where they came from Iraq. So in Iraq, they didn't have anything to worry about. They didn't have stress where they lived. Nothing like in America, the culture is different. You just get a lot of anxiety because there's a lot of bills to pay, this and that. So where he came from, for him, it was like, there's no such thing. Like food won't do that. Or, I don't know, for whatever reason, he didn't believe that food can affect you in that, or if you change your diet, you can feel better, or I don't know. So it was interesting. Very,
So if food's the
It's
most
all-knowing.
important thing in terms of your well-being, it's mental and physical. Food, you're saying you would pick food, right?
It's top 3, I would
Okay.
say.
What would
Yeah.
you say? What would you round out? What's the top 3? So that's one of them.
So
What else would you throw in there?
Food, mind, and if you believe in the soul or heart, like if you don't believe in the soul, heart, like having some sort of a foundation of belief system for yourself. Anything. It doesn't have to be God. It doesn't have, it could be
Something.
it could be source. It could be something. Or even if you don't believe in anything, at least believe in yourself. That's believe in the power you have within you that that's in all of us, actually. So just like I don't know, who was it, Alan Watts or somebody that says, like, a star, we have what stars have. We're made up of the same thing that the stars are made up of.
Are we?
Like, yeah, carbon and
Oh.
the elements,
Sure.
the chemicals. So we're a universe of our own. If you look at the
Interesting.
body ayurvedically, it's a whole universe of its own. And then you're so ask yourself this question: are you your body?
Yes.
Yes. So if you let's say you couldn't, if you didn't have this body, would you be yourself again, or would you be somebody else?
I'd be somebody else or
Somebody-
something else.
Something else.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say if you, I don't know if that would be probably a bad example, but I'm trying to think of something. So basically, if so okay, as far as let's see, but let's think about this. When you as far as your mind is concerned, so if you can you realize that there's thinking happening?
Yeah.
Somebody's thinking?
Outside of me?
No, inside you. There's thinking happening.
Yeah.
And then someone's observing that thinking.
What?
So like
This is all internal, you're saying?
Yeah. Like
Okay, so when I'm thinking-
you notice when you're thinking.
Yes.
So who's noticing that
Me.
that you're thinking?
Oh, I am.
So something beyond thinking. There is something behind the thinking. So thinking, are you thinking? Are you the thinker, or are you noticing that this thinking is happening?
Oof.
So that's the question. Like, so if you're noticing that thinking is happening, so then there's another level of consciousness noticing that this thinking is happening,
You.
right?
Interesting.
Do you agree?
I'm thinking. I haven't thought of it that way. Yeah, that's very eye-opening
So like,
thought.
or like if for whatever reason, if I take your brain, your awareness, and I can take it out of your body and still sustain it, will you still exist?
You took my brain out, but I'm
your brain, your heart, everything. Just I
is
mean,
out
your
of me.
brain, your consciousness. Let's say is your
Okay.
brain, right?
Okay.
We took it out of your body.
Okay.
Would you still exist? And let's say we sustain it. It's alive. Like we can sustain it outside of
I
your
wouldn't
body.
think so. No, because it's over there. If the source is this and it's out, and that body is there. But if this is out of there, I wouldn't. No.
So your body isn't you then, right?
No.
Okay.
Well, friend. I didn't prep for this.
So what I'm saying is, you're not your body and you're not your brain. You're not your thinking. So there's something else noticing that's all this is going on.
Oof, this is heavy.
So
okay, what are you suggesting it is? What do you think? Like
it's consciousness. It's your own consciousness. Everybody has that consciousness. Everybody that has that connection is the same consciousness. So when you come into this world, you're given this body, this Halloween costume, and you're given the brain, And what your responsibility is to take care of the body and the brain so that it serves you well. And you don't know how to take care of it unless you have a nice book telling you, a manual. Otherwise, we abuse it and we abuse it, and then we come to a point where like, now what? It doesn't function anymore, and we're like, oh man, this thing doesn't last long. Lasts about 100 years, maybe, more or less.
It's really long.
But and plus you get to enjoy life better, more if you're healthy. Number one thing is health, because once we lose our health, people only get desperate then when they lose their health and they're like, shit, this sucks.
You're right.
I gotta go do something about this, If it's fine, if they don't have that pain, they don't even think twice. They just, it's normal. Everybody does that. Everybody's like that.
Yeah.
Very few people that care about their health. And then there are people who say, oh, we're gonna die one day, so let me just enjoy. Okay, enjoy, but don't overdo and don't burn it out.
You can have a longer time to enjoy.
Exactly. You got it.
Oof. Oh, there's so much there that I want to jump into, but
so you're like the father of your body and your mind. You're the caregiver. You've got, what my teacher says, you've got 4 trillion babies to take care of. Your body has that many cells. So, and the mind. So that's your responsibility, is just to take care of it and do whatever you want with it. You can do good with it. You can do bad with it. That's up to you. That's up to that consciousness that's behind the thinking.
That was very fascinating. A lot of.
You brought up the question, so
I did.
I'm giving you the answer.
No, I'm not.
I'm answering as much as I can.
I'm very glad you brought that up, because that, hadn't thought of that.
Well,
now that's something to think about more after.
I'm glad if I.
No, definitely.
Definitely.
So going back to, let's go back to yoga for a second. How, because you kind of referenced it, but I'm curious, in your eyes, how instrumental, because you're mentioning like how each pose, each movement, all of that it's for a reason.
Yes.
How impactful, beneficial, I would say, was your background in physical therapy and better understanding that? Because, for example, like if I were to go and do it, I'd be like, no, is it this?
Whatever. It's just an elbow.
But then you'd be like, well, no, it has to be like this or whatever the thing is, right?
Yeah. No, it helped a lot because going to PT school, we dissected the human body from head to toe. So we know all the muscles and organs and nerves and arteries and veins, where they go through and everything. So we had to find all those things. And that was my favorite class, because I just was fascinated by the human body. And I just like the craziness of like dissecting the human body was like unbelievable. So that was like the highlight of my PT school. But when I do the poses, it's in my head, like what muscle is stretching. And then if I turn the hip a little bit this way, I can target that muscle more. So it's like totally a different experience. I'm visualizing it in my head, and I'm tweaking it and definitely maybe, correcting it because of that knowledge that I have in the background. I'd say it's a very it benefited a lot, for sure.
Would you say that yoga is for everyone? Like
everybody,
not just the ability to do it, but like
everybody can do yoga. Everybody.
Should everyone do yoga?
Should, if they want to, like if they have the desire. If you don't, then you
won't benefit.
You're not
from
ready. Probably not. You still would, but like.
Not as much as if you were willingly going.
I mean, you could, as you do it, you might actually start liking it and become more like, I'm at a point where when I wake up in the morning, I can't wait to do it and stretch it out and get my body to like open up, because at night when we sleep, it becomes stagnant. All the water accumulates, and then you do all these poses where you squeeze all the water out and then you go pee it out or whatever, for me, it's become that like I love to do it. I want to do it because I feel great afterwards. So I would say at least try it and see how you feel and give it a chance. Don't just give up in, 1 or 2 tries. Go for at least like 10 lessons or 5 lessons, something, and see, because as a physical therapist, it fascinates me how comprehensive yoga is. It does stretching, it does strengthening, it does cardio, and it does balance, coordination, all in one. All in one. You don't have to do this and then go do this and then you just do it all together.
What's the difference between yoga and Pilates?
Pilates is really awesome too. I love Pilates. I do some exercises that I do are Pilates based. The only thing I think that's missing from Pilates is yoga has more, it's unlimited poses. When I took my first hatha yoga class, I'm in Cal State LA, the lady said that you have unlimited poses, meaning any position can be a pose. If you get into that position and it feels good for you, you can make that a pose. There's like, I don't know if you know the names. There's like crow pose, there's dolphin,
I just know, what
fish,
is it? Downward dog.
Downward dog, upward dog. There's, all these different poses. Pilates is more, it's great for, it focuses on core strengthening, back health, spine health. The one thing I've noticed in Pilates doesn't have that much, which yoga has. Yoga has more varieties of movements, way more than Pilates. But Pilates is great with that machine, the slider, there's a machine that you can use for resistance.
Oh, okay.
That's a great one if you can have, but it takes room. You gotta have, but yoga you could just do anywhere. The one thing I really appreciate about yoga that no other exercise form I've seen has, maybe swimming has, that you can compare swimming to yoga, is the twisting of the spine. To me, and you will hear me say it in my videos, twisting of the spine is like the most important movement of yoga that yoga offers. Because when you twist your spine, I don't know if you've been to a chiropractor, they put you down and they twist you and they crack your back.
Feels good.
Yeah. So when you're twisting, you're doing that, but you're doing it to yourself. You're doing self-chiropractic work. So when you're twisting, there are these tiny little muscles of that attach each vertebrae to each other, going first this way, then going this way, then going this way. So when you're twisting, you're stretching those muscles. When you stretch those muscles, you create more space between the vertebrae so your discs don't get flat. So when the discs don't get flat, plus on top of that, all these veins and arteries that are coming out of the foramen, the holes on the sides, they have more space to move around and breathe. So the nerves send the signal to the organs easier. So you've got all these, if the pathway is clear, you don't have arthritis, you don't have stenosis. Yoga keeps the stenosis away, basically, lubricates the spine joints, and it keeps all those pathways open so that the communication goes, because they go to each and every organ, the artery, the vein. So they get fed correctly and they get cleansed correctly and they get stimulated correctly.
It's that explanation you just gave and the other ones you've given similarly, where you're explaining what the poses do or what the exercise itself does, is exactly why I wanted to ask how much do you think your background in physical therapy helps with it? Because like if I was asked talking to someone like a yoga instructor but doesn't have that, I feel like they'd still explain it like what it does,
right?
But
they
that level, like 90% of the words you said, no idea what it means. So I'm gonna have to like rewatch and see what all that is.
The foramens are the holes that the veins and the arteries and the nerves are coming out of. The main ones that come from the spinal cord and go into the and then you've got the foramens and the facet joints. The facet joints are they slant, they come on top of each other. These are when you move your spine back and forward, they move. So these over time they get stuck on top of each other, and they calcify, and from the diet, again, lifestyle. So if you keep doing yoga, you got this nice free movement. So there's a saying, something about the more mobile spine you have, the healthier body you have. So however mobile your spine is, that's how healthy your body's going to be, your organs are going to be. So I really think everything comes from the spine, and yoga really focuses on the spine. All those movements are really just kind of opening up the spine. So that's the key to health, the spine, literally. So I
Very
can't
interesting.
think of anything that's more comprehensive exercise wise than yoga, as far as physical therapist. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so we've discussed a bunch of different stuff. So I'm curious, given where you are now, how you kind of explained some of the stuff you've done when you went to school, all that. So throughout all of this, that everything you've gone through to get here, obviously there's times you've had the difficult times for whatever reason. So whether they have been in personal or business, both. For you, what were like those moments, whatever depth you want to get into, and how were you able to overcome them to ultimately continue and to get to where you are and to kind of accelerate,
Yeah.
go beyond?
So I would say my ultimate source of support would be my meditations. And it's not enough to just meditate. You have to have some sort of a belief, faith, which comes from trust. You have to trust that that thing is it. Whatever you're believing, no matter what, it could be, your faith can be the bumblebee. As long as you have that trust that the bumblebee is gonna save you, I think it's important. That's gonna, to me, the idea of God, or quote unquote God, to me is it's a source that's everywhere, within us, without us, and we are quote unquote tiny gods creating, because we created everything you see. This is created by humans. We had the imagination, so we can create anything we want in our lives, and everything that does happen in our lives, we created it, whether we know it or not, whether we accept it or not. We did want it, we attracted it, it came to us because we were ready for it or asked for it, whatever. Our higher, I like to think the higher self, or super conscious in psychology. So that for me was the fallback, kind of the faith I had, and the belief that there's that force that is the support is what's real and what actually is permanent. Because I do believe, knowing physics and chemistry, everything is temporary, everything is always changing. There's nothing permanent. The only permanent thing you could say is the present and your consciousness. This consciousness is permanent. This consciousness is observing everything changing all the time. So going back to that knowledge of that source that's there, and this is all part of the game. And this brings me to Ayurveda, which Ayurveda is based on 7 philosophies. One of the philosophies is called Sankhya philosophy, and it starts with how all of this started, the world, basically, and it starts with a condensed energy that's just kind of floating, and which is called Purusha. And Purusha decides that it wants to experience itself. So it divides into 2. And Prakriti comes out of Purusha, And so Purusha, and now you have Prakriti, which is the creative force. Purusha is the wisdom, the intelligence, and Prakriti is the creative force that starts to create. So it starts to go around, it starts to go around Purusha, kind of like an atom with an electron. So then it starts to create and create and create and create it, and eventually it starts to create stars, the universe, then elements, then the 5 elements. This is that philosophy, the Shankya philosophy. So anytime I guess I go through really difficult times, I center myself going into that thinking or that reminder of this is all part of that game we decided we wanted to play. And this is part of that play. Whether it's good or bad, we wanted it. And everything, it's duality. Everything has opposite. We wanted the duality, we got it. So now we have to deal with it. That's kind of like, not to mention, of course, people in my life helped a lot. My cousin and uncle, different times when I needed them, they were there. But the core of it, right now at this point, presently, the core of it is that the meditation and the belief system, the faith. So that would probably be the factor.
And all of this, so like you were mentioning earlier, but I just want to clarify to make sure. So all of this, like this journey with yoga and kind of learning about all of this, stemmed from that one that time when you went to that the temple. It all stemmed from
self-realization fellowship. That's when the journey. That's when I found my path, my journey, my path. I found the guidance. Before that, I was always reading self-help books. Eckhart Tolle. I still read his books afterwards, but I still listen to him. I love his talks. But before that, I was reading self-help books, and I knew I was looking for something desperately, and I knew it was out there, and there is the truth out there, and I'm gonna find it, and I'm still looking for the truth. At least I know right now which direction it's pointing, and which is yoga and meditation for me. So now I'm in the process of it. I'm on the path of finding out the truth, basically. That's my goal.
Yeah, and I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will get there.
Hopefully, maybe this lifetime, maybe not. We'll see.
Okay, Elizabeth. That's pretty much all I have for you. That was very eye-opening for me.
Okay.
I think for Stephen here too.
Awesome.
Very very insightful.
Great.
There's a lot there. Yeah, because when Armand mentioned you, because I've known of you since he had.
Oh really?
Because he mentioned you worked with him, right?
Yeah,
so I've known of you.
Okay.
And then once we started doing this and we're talking about like people to get on and stuff, he brought you up again and explained. Obviously, I knew you did PT and then mentioned you do this with yoga now.
Yeah.
And then he even mentioned he mentioned everything you're doing. He's like, some of it she explained to me like. She's explaining. I still kind of don't get it. I'm like, well, perfect. Now we can iron it out, and now we have it on recording. So just keep replaying it if you don't get it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But so given that background he shared, I'm like, yeah, of course. Let's see what else we can learn from it. But I wasn't expecting this.
You weren't expecting.
No,
okay. All right.
Which in a good way.
Okay, good.
So I want to thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, I might have to ask you to come in because there's a lot of the other stuff you're saying. I'm like, I want to go more into that stuff.
Yeah, right. Anytime, yeah, for sure. Would love to talk more about it.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it again. Thank you. Yeah.
So whoever wants to know, obviously.
Yeah. So before we sign off, go ahead. If you want, is any social media stuff you want to put in? I know you have your YouTube too. We'll put it in the links as well. But go ahead, share.
My YouTube channel. It's called Yoga with Eliza, and I'm on Instagram too. Same thing, Yoga with Eliza, and Facebook. I don't have. It's Elizabeth Dove, DOV. But I do have a page. I need to work on my Facebook page. I do have a website, lifeenergyphysicaltherapy.com. I'm sorry, lifeenergypt.com. That has a little bit of information on what I do as far as yoga. I mean, as far as physical therapy wise. But I think that's about it as far as yeah, for information. Oh, I do live yoga classes right now, Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. and then Saturdays at 8:30 a.m.
And that's on your YouTube?
Mm-hmm.
It's live streamed
Live on
there?
YouTube, yeah.
Okay, we'll put that.
Yeah.
We'll put that there too.
Okay. Oh, and I started. We actually started teaching in the studio on Mondays. Restorative. Restorative is like a calming, stretching, meditative type of yoga. It's a little different than movement. It's more meditative, I would say. Healing. It focuses on.
Is that open for people to go in?
Yes, that's open, and it's happening in Glendale, Montrose area. It's called a Meta Meditation Studio, and it's I don't know where I think I have the information. I can post it on my
We'll get it
on
from
my
you, and we'll include it.
Instagram and maybe on my
Yeah.
YouTube videos too. So
Yeah, we'll get that. We'll include that
Okay.
too.
Awesome. Great.
Awesome. Well,
Thank
thanks
you.
again, Elizabeth.
Thank
That was
you.
great.
My pleasure.